Chapter 1066 Prelude to Causing a Stir. It was just a mere triangular lightning rune. Even if it had extraordinary power, it could not seal Su Ming, who had replaced the completed Yikang. Even if Su Ming's Yikang could not compare with the Yikang who could act in an unbridled manner in the universe in terms of cultivation, they belonged in the same category of life forms. What Su Ming needed was time. As it passed, his Yikang clone would grow until he reached the state of Yikang in the past and surpassed it, reaching a pinnacle that no one had ever reached before. After all, Su Ming had another status besides Yikang's true form. He was someone who belonged to Old Man Extermination. Based on Su Ming's understanding, Old Man Extermination was an old man from Dark Dawn's camp. He was so strong that it was difficult to estimate his level of cultivation. He was the strongest person Su Ming had ever come to know. Su Ming had always had his speculations that there was a high possibility that such a strong person would not have any sort of limitations placed on him even though he came from Dark Dawn, but Su Ming did not have a lot of clues regarding the details, so it was difficult for him to know the truth. However, there was another speculation that always lurked in his mind. Why were Dark Dawn and Saint Defier against each other? This was something that Su Ming had never been able to figure out before he met the Golden Mosquito, but through it and the golden drop of blood, he felt that he might have caught a hint of truth. Dark Dawn and Saint Defier counteracted each other, so if they devoured the other, they would immediately become stronger. This was something Su Ming felt clearly when the seed of life extermination devoured the golden blood and showed signs swiftly recovering. If that was the case, then perhaps Dark Dawn and Saint Defier were enemies because devouring the other party could make them stronger. If they could destroy the other camp, they could rule all universes. Cultivators practice cultivation to mend the flaws in their bodies until they are perfect. Su Ming buried his question and speculation in the depths of his heart. At the moment he walked out of the triangular lightning rune, his gaze fell on the three sect masters in front of him. The old man who had shown goodwill to Su Ming right from the start wrapped his fist in his palm and said, "Our cautiousness beforehand must have surely offended you greatly. Please forgive us, Your Highness. It is simply because your growth has been too great since you came back from the barren lands of divine essence, and we could not attribute your growth to any reason. There are no longer any questions within us. 3 days later, the anointment ceremony will be held, and then you will go through challenges and trials. With your level of cultivation, this will naturally be as easy as breathing for you. Allow me to congratulate you beforehand." The old man smiled. When he looked towards Su Ming, a kindly look appeared in his eyes. The other old man also nodded with a smile. As sect masters in Morning Dao sect, they were naturally very happy to be able to see a person with the golden bloodline. Only the tanned old man remained silent by the side. "I have also offended all of you previously. I hope that the both of you will not blame me for it." Su Ming might be temperamental, but the two old men before him were very courteous to him, and the praise on their faces was also very genuine. Hence he wrapped his fist in his palm to return the greeting. That was how Su Ming was like. If others respected him, he would naturally not treat them with malicious words. As for the tanned old man, he completely ignored him. Now that the previous misunderstanding between them could be considered to have been resolved, Su Ming obtained the plate of a dynast, and only then was he truly regarded as having officially returned to Morning Dao sect. Once he wrapped his fist in his palm to thank the two sect masters, he turned around and left in the form of a long arc. The thin Ma Fei had been shocked by what Su Ming had done. At that moment, she quickly followed behind him, and with wide, flashing eyes, she occasionally sized up Su Ming. There was an expression of interest on her face. When Su Ming left and the golden light over the third continent faded away, the three old men outside the sect elder chamber stayed still for a time. The old man who had remained amicable to Su Ming since the start turned his head sideways to cast a glance at the tanned sect master. "Yu Lin, you were a little too reckless with this." The tanned old man let out a cold harumph, and a dark light shone in his eyes. "I've already sent someone to the barren lands of divine essence to investigate everything that happened in that place when he was there. He'll be back soon. At that time, we'll know what happened and why Dao Kong's power increased so much," the tanned old man said with a cold tone. "So what if you know? He already went through the blood-soul fusion test and it shone with golden light. That is the sign of him surpassing our ancestral roots. Based on the teachings of our ancestors, as long as he doesn't do anything that betrays Morning Dao sect, We are not to interfere with his actions, the other man said with a frown. I've already sent that person, so whatever you say at this point is meaningless. When he returns in a few days, our questions will all be answered. After all, we do not communicate with those in the barren lands of divine essence. We'll soon know everything that happened there, the tanned old man retorted coldly before turning around and swinging his arm before dashing towards the tower he'd chosen as his meditation grounds. The other two sect masters exchanged glances with each other, then shook their heads before heading back to their own towers. The tanned old man sat down cross-legged in his tower. Within its silence, his expression was incredibly sullen. He had intended to make things difficult for Dao Kong because he was made a dynast and there were people from his own family who were made dynasts. Because of that, it would have been good if he could have killed Dao Kong. But he did not expect this sort of result. Not only did he not get to kill Dao Kong, he instead caused Dao Kong to gain more influence. After this, everyone in Morning Dao sect would know about his golden bloodline. Golden bloodline. The tanned old man's eyes glimmered faintly. He lifted his right hand, and a jade slip appeared on his palm. With a light squeeze, it disappeared without a trace. I will spread this to the galaxy beyond. The forces of power in the Immortals Union will surely be interested in Dao Kong's golden bloodline. A faint smile appeared on the tanned old man's face. Also, he definitely has plenty of secrets from the barren lands of divine essence. The person I sent over is a true guard who had once been to the barren lands. With him going over to investigate things, I will definitely learn plenty of things about which the others will not be aware. If I make some estimations, he should be able to return around the time of the ceremony. At that moment, he will be able to reveal Dao Kong's secrets from the barren lands in front of all the disciples of Morning Dao sect. Perhaps it's not enough for me alone to be doubting him, but if I can make all the disciples in Morning Dao sect suspect him, then even if he has the golden bloodline, he will need to offer up an explanation. Then I will use it to cancel his status of a dynast before he is truly made one. A cold sneer curled up the tanned old man's lips while he closed his eyes. He looked forward to what sort of results the person he sent to the barren lands of divine essence would bring to all the disciples in Morning Dao sect. Su Ming left the third continent and returned to Dao Kong's continent, the land covered by an ocean. What welcomed him was another round of excited cheers which lasted till nightfall. Only then did silence slowly settle over the continent. It was late at night when Su Ming sat on a cliff by himself. In his ears were the sounds of waves crashing against the rocks. Before him was an ocean whose end could not be seen. It might be night, and the light from the moon might not be bright, but all those in the continent could still see how vast the ocean was and smell the scent wrought by the sea breeze. Xu Hui came to sit beside Su Ming to watch the ocean with him. The two dogs, which were the bald crane and the abyss dragon, came over and sprawled themselves by the side while yawning as well. Su Ming stared at the ocean. He remembered South Morning and the berserkers there who were submerged under the water. He remembered the Ninth Summit, his senior brothers, and he wondered whether they were still in the land of berserkers or if they had managed to walk out. Su Ming shook his head. After all, 1,000-something years had passed since then. It was just too much time. Besides the memories, there was nothing else he had left about them. Xu Hui tugged the strands of her hair which had been lifted by the sea breeze, then turned her head to look at Su Ming's pensive expression. "Do you like this place?" she asked quietly. "What about you?" Su Ming did not answer her but threw the question back at her. "I don't really like it." Xu Hui shook her head. "This place doesn't belong to me. It's a pity my sect has become a member of the Immortals Union. I feel slightly uncomfortable in this place." Xu Hui sighed softly. "If a day arrives when this place belongs to me, then I will like it," Su Ming said faintly. Xu Hui did not speak. She looked at the ocean, and after remaining silent for a moment, she turned her head around to stare at Su Ming once more. A complicated expression flashed briefly on her face. But just as she was about to say something, he suddenly spoke up. "The complicated expression on your face has appeared several times before. It was the most prominent on you when I saved you in the 5th kill. Xu Hui, everyone has their own secrets." Su Ming picked up a stone by his side and lightly threw it into the ocean where it was submerged by seawater. "Those secrets are like stones. When they fall into the ocean, they disappear without a trace, but if we want to fish them out, it's rather difficult. Shu Hui hesitated for a moment. Don't tell me. There are certain things upon which you can lord for as long you don't say them. But once you give them voice, you will become their servant. Su Ming turned his head around and stared at Shu Hui. She remained silent for some time before biting her bottom lip and lowering her head. In a few moments, she asked faintly, "Once you are made a true dynast, I'd like to leave your side for some time to settle some personal matters. Do you need me around?" Su Ming asked with sincerity. "Not for the moment, but if I really need your help, you'll know." Shu Hui lifted her head and looked at Su Ming with a smile. There was an unrestrained, free air to it. The shackles that had always held her from the shadows were gone. This sort of smile is the most beautiful. Even if you have quite a lot of moles, you're still very beautiful. Su Ming smiled. "Well, I guess having the person who can't win against me in drinking describing me this way is also a form of honor, When Shu Hui heard Su Ming's words, she immediately retorted, but once she finished speaking, she was the first to cover her mouth and laugh. Her covered mouth and open eyes, which had curved into the shape of crescent moons, seemed to be reflecting the moonlight in the sky and giving her an even more elegant charm. The bald crane cast a sideways glance at Su Ming and Shu Hui before it snorted in its heart while thinking to itself that Su Ming and Shu Hui really dallied with their actions. If it was in their place, then if it had found someone it fancied, it would immediately make its moves on them. It would definitely not spend so much time flirting with the other. The big dog, which was the abyss dragon, also snorted in its heart, but it was more of a grumble. Chapter 1067 Anointment ceremony. Time trickled by slowly. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. During the morning of the 3rd day, a solemn bell toll reverberated through all the continents of the 4 planes in Morning Dao Sect, the 9,999 continents in the 4th plane, the 999 continents in the 3rd plane, the 99 continents in the 2nd plane, and the 9 continents in the 1st plane. At that moment, a bell toll echoed in through air of the highest plane. The bell tolled 99 times. It signified the peak of all numbers as well as the start of the anointment ceremony, which was the center of attention for all disciples in Morning Dao Sect. The ceremony would last for some time, and during it, besides the war chamber which remained in the galaxy beyond to prevent the Immortals' Union from invading their world, all other disciples would rush back to Morning Dao Sect through the relocation spots to attend the anointment ceremony. The place where the ceremony was held was the center of the 9 continents of the upper plane. On the day the ceremony started to the day it ended, all barriers around the 9 continents in the upper plane would be taken down, allowing all disciples to gain access to the place. In fact, they could even join the ceremony. At the end of the anointment ceremony, the 10 great dynasts would go through various challenges and trials. In the end, when they were truly made dynasts, the representatives from the other 3 great true worlds would come to bear witness to Morning Dao Sect's 10 great heirs. There would be plenty of messengers from the other 3 great true worlds, and they would all be outstanding people. In fact, based on tradition, there would even be a competition between the heirs of the 4 great true worlds. This would be the liveliest event in many years within true Morning Dao world, and it would be an incredibly grand ceremony. When morning arrived and the bell tolls rang out, loud booms came from each continent. They shook the sky and earth, causing the universe to seem to tremble under the sound. Sound waves crashed against the surface of the sea within Dao Ocean, Morning Dao Sect's forbidden grounds, as well as rising into the 9 heavens. Fusing with those sounds were the drums, which were 100 feet big, being struck on all 9,999 continents of the 4th plane. There were also sounds coming from 999 large drums located on the continents in the 3rd plane. These drums were 1,000 feet big and would only make sound when 100 people surrounded them and struck one at the same time. 10,000 feet tall drums roared from the 99 continents in the 2nd plane. As the drumming and the bell tolls fused together, countless cultivators prepared to depart on each of the continents in Morning Dao Sect. They were all waiting for the ceremony to start. After a moment, as the sound of the drums reached a state when it could shake the sky and earth, an old, awe-inspiring voice came from the air above and reverberated through the whole world. Cultivators do not need any form of extravagance in anything, even if it is an anointment ceremony. We only need to do things in a dignified manner. The disciples from other races form the foundation of Morning Dao Sect, and we cannot have them lacking. which is why the first batch of the people who can come here are the disciples from the other races in the 9,999 continents in the fourth plane, as well as those in the 999 continents from the third plane. As that voice echoed in the air, the drums rumbled once again. Long arcs flew up from the 9,999 continents and 999 continents in the fourth and third plane to charge towards the center of the 9 continents in the first plane. There were countless long arcs, and anyone standing within Morning Dao sect could see them cover the sky. They were innumerable. When anyone cast their gaze over them, they seemed like raindrops rising from the ground, making it seem as if the world had been turned upside down. 100,000, 1 million, up to 10 million long arcs appeared at the same time in the sky. It was a shocking sight that most people would not be able to see in their lives. At that moment, it was as if the world was about to be torn apart, as if the universe was about to topple over. With an astonishing momentum, 10 million long arcs stirred up a violent gust of wind as they charged forward as if they could crush all forms of law. The long arcs moved swiftly past the 99 continents in the second plane and rushed to the place at the center of the 9 continents in the first plane. Wherever they went, the 99 continents in the second plane would tremble, and it caused the ocean in Dao Kong's continent to tumble about. Violent gusts of wind from all directions swept past violently and stirred up a momentum that was as great as tidal waves. It was difficult to describe such a scene with words. All of this was enough to shock all those who saw it. This kind of event was Morning Dao sect's show of respect to the disciples from the other races. They could also let the direct descendants of the sect know through it that even if they were direct descendants and even dynasts, they still had to value the disciples from the other races. Because they were the foundation. Once the 10 million long arcs charged over, the commotion gradually died down. When the booming slowly calmed and the 10 million cultivators reached the center of the 9 continents in the first plane, the old, awe-inspiring voice spoke once more. The next to enter would be the members of the branch families. Your ancestors are from the immortals, and your people have given up everything for Morning Dao sect. As for you, you will naturally receive Morning Dao sect's protection, but I believe that some among you will surpass your ancestors and stimulate your bloodlines, so that you will become direct descendants. At the instant that voice echoed in the air, cultivators from the 99 continents in the second plane flew up. Their numbers were much fewer, there was only about 1 million of them. As they rose up, they charged through to the center of the 9 continents. They possessed varying levels of cultivation, and while the momentum of the violent gust of wind they stirred up was not as great as the one caused by the 10 million disciples from the other races, their presence was still shocking. The ones who will step in next are the direct descendants of Morning Dao sect. You are direct descendants because your ancestors are all in the Council of Sect Masters. As long as they are around, their bloodline will remain. However, if you are arrogant because of this and do not move forward, then when the day comes and your ancestor either dies in battle or passes away of old age, you will be reduced to a branch family and will lose your right to be proud. The awe-inspiring tone in the old voice was incredibly great at that moment. In fact, there was a hint of intimidation within it, and the hearts of most direct descendants trembled. Then, they immediately rose into the air, and with all their power, they brought forth the most dazzling presence they could muster. Long arcs of tens of thousands of people flew up from the 99 continents. The hundreds of direct descendants from the continent which belonged to Dao Kong also erupted with all their power. In the midst of the loud bangs, tens of thousands of people sliced through the air and charged towards the spot at the center of the 9 continents in the first plane. The last to come forth will be the 10 heirs who are to be anointed this time, the 10 great dynasts of Morning Dao sect. But you must remember, you are now only quasi-dynasts, not true dynasts. You must all face challenges, and if you fails in them, they will lose your right to be a quasi-dynast. Any disciple who wins against you will be able to obtain your status. Even if that disciple belongs to another race or one of the branch families, as long as they win against you, they can take everything that belongs to you. Even if you manage to persevere through the challenges, you must still go through the trials. If you fail during the trials, you will lose your right to be a dynast. If 9 of you fail and only 1 remains, that 1 will be the sole dynast. And if 1 of you fails while the other 9 remain, then there will be 9 great dynasts in Morning Dao sect. If all of you fail, then we will choose 10 other people to become dynasts and go through the same challenges and trials. So, you must value your current status. 10 great dynasts, come forth, the old voice said in a sterner tone. The level of severity in his words surpassed that which was used for the direct descendants just moments ago. As the words echoed in the air, several long arcs flew up from the ground. Su Ming lifted his head to stare above himself. With a calm expression on his face, he walked towards the sky. When he cast his gaze across the area, he saw only 9 other arcs. As they approached the spot between the 9 continents in the first plane, they gradually saw each other. In an instant, Su Ming sensed the other 9 looking towards him. All of them were men, and most of them appeared to be middle-aged, but it was impossible to discern their real ages based on their physical appearances. They were staring at Su Ming, and he was staring back at them. A glint appeared in their eyes before they averted their gazes. The 10 people then turned into long arcs and rushed upwards. The competition had already started in an unseen manner. From another point of view, whoever was the fastest would be the one with the highest level of cultivation, and whoever was the slowest would give the impression of being the weakest, even though this was not absolute. That person would usually be the one who would be the main pick for the other disciples who would challenge them. The candidates for the 10 great dynasts were all chosen by progenitor Dao Chen, but even though they had been chosen, there were plenty of powerful warriors among the direct descendants, people from the branch families, and the vast pool of disciples from the other races. There would be no one who would truly accept a simple choosing from above, and it was the reason why when they looked towards Su Ming and the other 9, their gazes were filled with hostility. Those who replaced them would make a name for themselves in Morning Dao sect and become dynasts worshipped by hundreds of millions of people. To the direct descendants, even if they could not become the master of true Morning Dao world in the end, it would be enough glory. Because of that, they were incredibly excited and agitated before the challenge. After all, it might be the one and only time when they could truly snatch such a glory without being restricted by their blood. That was why when the 10 dynasts flew up, the 100 million cultivators in the air cast their gazes on them. Quite a number of them looked towards Su Ming. After all, compared to the other 9, he was more mysterious and rather unfamiliar. The 10 quasi-dynasts of Morning Dao sect charged forward. Even though they did not bring out their full power, they still used an incredibly fast speed to instantly dash to the center of the 9 continents. One of the 3 who were the fastest was the middle-aged man who had made arrangements for Dao Fei Xian to test Su Ming. Upon noticing him, a barely noticeable glint shone in Su Ming's eyes. He lifted his foot, and with a single move, a loud bang rang out around him. It was loud as a sonic boom, and fog appeared around him. It looked as if it had swept up his body, and his speed increased in an instant. When his foot landed, he had already overtaken the 3 at the front. When he took another step forward, he reached the center of the 9 continents in the first plane. What Su Ming wanted was a show of arrogance and intimidation, which was why he did not conceal his speed. He did not show all he had, but that was because he did not need to be extremely fast, just faster than the other 9. Booming sounds echoed in the air, and the other people arrived one after another at the center. All 10 of you, go to your spots immediately. The first part of the anointment ceremony shall begin. All those who challenge the dynasts will not have their survivals accounted for, the old voice stated straight away. This time, there was a grim and cold tone to it. Chapter 1068 Challenge from 7 million. If anyone raised their heads from the 99 continents on the second plane, they would feel as if the space at the center of the 9 continents in the upper realm was not exactly very big. But in truth, if they were there at that spot, they would be able to tell that this particular spot had no bounds. That place could accommodate 10 million people at the same time, and there would still be plenty of space left. At that moment, there were 11 gigantic lotus platforms in the air. The lotus platform at the center was the biggest, and it was about several hundreds of thousands of feet big. Surrounding it were 10 other smaller lotus platforms. Farther away were circles of stones shining with 5-colored lights. Standing on each stone were Morning Dao sect cultivators, and the densely packed stones illuminated the place in 5 different colors. There were more than 10 million cultivators standing within them. Anyone who looked over would find such a scene incredibly astonishing. There was a circle of drums at the outermost region. Rousing drum rolls spread through the galaxy and echoed in the air. Standing on the biggest lotus platform in the center at that moment was an old man. He was dressed in a golden long robe. His face was old, but when he opened his eyes, there was brilliant light shining within them. All those who fell into his line of sight immediately felt as if their life force was boiling. There was only one possible reason for a person to be able to cause this effect, and that was being in Life Realm. And he was not any ordinary almighty in Life Realm. He had reached it a long time ago, and his power was so great and deep that he was a powerful existence which could shock all people's hearts. Behind that old man were 3 other people. Su Ming had seen them before. Needless to say, they were the sect masters in charge of managing all things for that century in Morning Dao sect. However, based on their location, it could be seen that their status was clearly not as great as that of the old man in Life Realm. There were incredibly exquisite and lavish tables with auspicious beasts carved on them placed around the lotus platform where the old man stood. There were thousands of these tables, but all of them were empty. The bright ones among the people immediately understood what it meant. The tables were prepared for those who would come from the other 3 great true worlds to congratulate the dynasts when they were truly anointed. As the old man's ancient voice spread out, the 9 dynasts who came with Su Ming instantly moved and spread through the 10 smaller lotus platforms. Su Ming took a step forward and also landed on one of them. At the instant he did so, a dazzling light spread out from the lotus platform beneath him. It was also not the only one that acted this way. The lotus platforms of the other 9 dynasts were the same. Because of it, the dazzling lights made it seem as if 10 beautiful lotuses had bloomed in space. In fact, there were even waves of faint fragrance spreading through the area. This scene caused Su Ming and the others to instantly become the most striking people in the crowd. They became the most brilliant sons in Morning Dao sect at that moment. Morning Dao sect. With the usual aged and awe-inspiring voice, the old man in Life Realm began to speak at the center of the large lotus platform. The disciples from the other races form the foundation, the descendants of the branch families form the Venus pathways, while the direct descendants are Morning Dao sect soul, which is why even though the 10 of you are only quasi-dynasts, to show that you are different from the others, you are granted the right to stand on Morning Dao sect's lotus platforms. On behalf of progenitor Dao Chen, I will also temporarily grant the 10 of you the lotus constellation robe. Whether or not you will continue to be in possession of this robe will depend on whether you can stand till the end of the ceremony. I will tell this straight to all of you that the robe has not been activated, but just wearing it will allow the 10 of you to borrow the power of true Morning Dao world's Kismet. It will aid you in gaining epiphanies, and your growth in your path of cultivation will surpass that of the others by several hundred times. With this robe, practicing cultivation for 1 year will be equivalent to training for 100 years. When it is truly activated, its defensive properties will allow you to withstand a full-powered strike from an almighty in Mastery Realm. In fact, it also contains a hint of the will from progenitor Dao Chen. You can only use it once, but even if it is just once, it will still be enough for you to kill an almighty in Mastery Realm. When you have become true dynasts, you will be allowed to go to the progenitor's isolation grounds, and progenitor Dao Chen will personally activate the robe. As the old man's voice echoed in the air, the breathing of the 10 million people quickened. At the same time, the light from the 10 lotus platforms on which Su Ming and the others stood lit up with an even more dazzling and piercing light. When it reached a blinding degree, the lotuses bloomed. Petals appeared out of nowhere and surrounded Su Ming as well as the other 9. At the same time, the sacred constellation robe they wore shone with a dazzling light as if reflecting the light from the petals. In an instant, those petals charged towards Su Ming and fused into the sacred constellation robe. All of the robes, including Su Ming's, transformed. The stars in them moved to form a flourishing lotus made by countless stars grouped together. Su Ming's gaze focused. He immediately sensed waves of strange aura spreading out from his robe. That aura was nourishing his body. It not only refreshed his mind, but also made him feel as if he would swiftly recover from all injuries he suffered from then on. Su Ming could also clearly feel the power which allowed the wearer to obtain the progress equivalent to 100 years with just 1 year of training. The flow of time on the robe was clearly different from the world around it. Because of that, the wearers seemed to be shrouded in a fog when anyone looked at them, making it hard for them to see Su Ming and the other 9 dynasts' faces. They gave a feeling of being about to fuse with the air. The thin line between illusion and reality naturally resulted in a mysterious air that turned into mighty pressure. This was the great difference between the dynast status and identities to those of the other people. Su Ming was not the only person who felt that way. At that moment, the other 9 dynasts also lowered their heads to look at the flourishing lotuses on their bodies as their expressions changed. At the same time, the gazes from the 10 million cultivators instantly focused on the 10 dynasts. In those gazes were greed, indignation, jealousy, and also envy. Various expressions and emotions could be seen, and it looked as if all that a person could possibly feel in their life could be found among the 10 million people. The 10 of you must have surely noticed the effects of the robes. I can tell you this, that flourishing lotus on your bodies is a supreme treasure which progenitor Tao Chen had personally created when he was in isolation. This supreme treasure has a terrifying divine ability. Its name is the same as that of the robe, flourishing lotus. It is a divine ability progenitor Tao Chen had come to understand while he was in isolation. It is fused into your robes, and you can activate it on your own, causing the robe to remember you at your strongest, as if time had been frozen at that particular moment. Then, when you are injured badly or have your life threatened, you can activate this art to turn back time and instantly return to the state the robe remembers, when you were at your strongest, the old man in Life Realm said faintly. His words were relaxed, but while the others could not tell, he was in truth also incredibly tempted by the 10 flourishing lotuses. If he was tempted, then it would be even more so for the 3 sect masters behind him. The 10 million cultivators around him also started breathing raggedly, and due to there being 10 million of them, the sound of their breathing was akin to thunder. Gazes filled with powerful desire landed on the 10 dynasts, and it was certain that their owner's fighting spirit had been lit. Whosoever becomes the dynast will be able to obtain this. Even if you are a disciple from other races, and even if you cannot become the master of true morning Tao world, you will still be able to obtain this lotus constellation robe. Now is the time for the first step of the anointment ceremony, the challenges. Your divine senses have already fused with this land, so you will only need to direct your gaze to the dynast you wish to challenge and spark your fighting spirit. The person with the strongest fighting spirit will be automatically sent to the lotus platform with the dynast they wish to challenge. Choose the quasi-dynasts you wish to challenge. All disciples who have arrived here and stand on the 5 colored stone platforms have the right to challenge them. However, I have to give you a final warning. Challengers are not allowed to kill, but the 10 dynasts who have been challenged have the right to kill. The old man cast a glance at the 10 million cultivators around them. When he turned his head around, he cast a glance at Su Ming and the other 9. Each time you manage to win against a person, the lotus platform beneath you and the robes on you will give life force for you to recover from all your wounds. I will provide that life force, so even if you are continuously challenged throughout the 7 days, you will not lack any life force. You can fight without any worry, the old man in Life Realm said flatly. There was no arrogance on his face, but his words were filled with confidence. When he swung his arm, his next words immediately echoed in all directions. The challenge begins. His voice rumbled, and some people among the 10 million instantly spread out their powerful fighting spirit. Once it fused with the air, they charged towards Su Ming and the other 9. It was at that moment that a loud boom came from Su Ming's lotus platform. A cloud and fog manifested swiftly above Su Ming, as if there was something powerful crashing against him. Most of the lotus platforms for the others went through the same thing, but the sound of something crashing against the fog and cloud were far less powerful than near Su Ming. In an instant, an ancient runic symbol appeared in the midst of those clashes. There were 10 platforms and 10 runic symbols, but they were all completely different from each other. The runic symbols were ancient letters. Each of them represented a number, and it meant just how many people were challenging the 10 people. They told the dynasts the approximate number of their challengers. As the runic symbols for the 10 lotus platforms appeared, an uproar rose into the air like a clap of thunder from among the 10 million people. Who is that? There are 7 million people challenging him. That person is an unfamiliar face, but is definitely that Dao Kong. Looks like our fellow sect members are hesitant about the others, which is why they chose to challenge him. But it's rumored that this person killed Dao Fei Feng and even tens of thousands of cultivators from the Immortals Union, isn't it? So what? It's because he has a powerful follower that he could do it. As loud voices reverberated in the air, Su Ming lifted his head to look at the runic symbol representing a number which had formed after the fighting spirits had crashed against the fog and cloud above him. His expression was slightly dark. Compared to him, The other dynasts only had about 1 million or even couple tens of thousands of cultivators challenging them. Chapter 1069. Hello, everyone. My name is Deshun. As Su Ming frowned, a person appeared on his platform. At the same time, most of the other dynasts were sent their challengers as well. Only 2 platforms were completely empty of challengers from Morning Dao sect. One of the dynasts standing on the 2 empty platforms was a young man who had an aloof expression on his face. A freezing aura spread out from his body, and it seemed to have frozen the air around him. There was also a mark of a snowflake at the center of his brows. There were no challengers on his platform. There was another platform which was empty of challengers, too. On it stood a middle-aged man. His face was rather pale, as if he was sick. He was smiling while he sat cross-legged, and he had an indifferent expression on his face. In his hand was a blue ball of light shining with a gentle light. He gave off a completely different feeling from the young man, but still, no one challenged him. Su Ming's expression was dark. If anyone was in his place, then having 7 million people challenging them right from the start would be equivalent to them issuing him a challenge letter. 7 million challenges was equivalent to 7/10 of the people in the place. It was especially frown-worthy when Su Ming saw the man who appeared on his lotus platform throw his head back and laugh the moment he appeared. There was an arrogant and smug undercurrent to his laughter, and he even had the gall to not first look at Su Ming. Instead, he turned around to look at the crowd behind him, then wrapped his fist in his palm to them before speaking up with excitement. My fellow sect members, thank you for modestly declining your right to challenge him and letting me have the fortune of becoming the first challenger in this place. Now, allow me to see just how good is this Dao Kong. The next moment, the man became the center of attention, and he stood out even more than Su Ming. As he laughed, he turned his head around, and with a ferocious smile, he looked at his opponent. A hint of greed appeared in his eyes, and when he lifted his right leg, he stepped forward to move towards Su Ming. At that instant, a screen of light immediately rose at the edges of the lotus platform. It immediately separated the platform from the world around it, preventing the people there from seeing what was happening inside. Because of it, since the others could not see what was going on inside, they would also be unable to know what transpired in the battle. When the screen of light appeared, Su Ming swept his gaze across it. He was completely unbothered by the incoming man. A loud bang rose from that person's body, and the power belonging to those in the middle stage of World Plane Realm instantly erupted from within him. This power went out in all directions and stirred up a whirlwind that swept through the whole area. A glint appeared in the man's eyes. He raised his right hand and formed a seal. In an instant, the whirlwind beside him shrank to form a gigantic wind blade in front of him. As it roared, it looked as if it was about to slice apart air along with Su Ming. At the same time, the man took a step forward. At that moment, shrill screams of pain came from the areas hidden by the screens of light. They were the final cries of several challengers before they were killed. Su Ming frowned. He did not even look at the howling wind blade as it came towards him. When he lifted his right hand, he swung it forward. With it, the incoming wind blade shuddered before instantly collapsing. It shattered into several parts, but it did not dissipate. Instead, it tumbled backwards with a bang, and as the man was momentarily taken aback, the fragments of the wind blade tumbled back towards him at several times their original speed. The man's expression instantly changed, and a shrill scream of pain left his lips. His body was blown into midair before he was thrown out of the screen of light and torn into pieces. His blood instantly spilled all over the place. When Su Ming took care of his first challenger, the other lotus platforms were also silent. Blood was spilled all around the area. The souls and bodies of all the challengers had been destroyed just like that. However, almost at the instant the lotus platforms became empty of challengers, other people took the place of the fallen. This time, the person who appeared on Su Ming's platform was an old man. The moment he showed up, he narrowed his eyes. With one move, his figure distorted and disappeared without a trace. Su Ming's expression remained the same. There was not a single change on his face. It did not matter to him whether the other disappeared or not. He only lifted his right leg, and once he placed it back down on the platform, a loud bang shot up. The space hundreds of thousands of feet around the lotus platform instantly froze. The old man's figure immediately appeared 1,000 feet away from Su Ming's right, but he was kept in place tightly, and the pressure from the space around him pressed on him so strongly that he looked as if he had been frozen. His face was filled with shock. When disbelief took over his expression, Su Ming turned his head around to cast a glance at him. He lifted his right hand and seized the air in his direction. The old man's body instantly charged towards Su Ming against his will. Su Ming then seized his neck, and in an aloof manner, he crushed it. His attitude towards challengers was to kill all of them. As long as they dared challenge him, they would end up dead. He had never any fondness towards Morning Dao sect to begin with, and since he was given a chance to kill its people in such a straightforward manner, he would naturally not be merciful. The old man's neck shattered with a bang, and even his nascent divinity along with his form and soul were destroyed. He was then flung out of the screen of light. Instantly, a third person appeared on the lotus platform which no one could see. When the man showed up, his laughter rang in the air. "It's finally my turn. Dao Kong, it'll be better if I'm the one wearing that flourishing lotus." That voice belonged to a middle-aged man. He was dressed in a constellation robe which showed that he was a direct descendant. All those who could wear the constellation robe were direct descendants in Morning Dao sect. Even though there were tens of thousands of them, to Morning Dao sect which controlled an entire true world, creating tens of thousands of constellation robes was really not much. The number of sacred constellation robes was far smaller. After all, even if people were direct descendants, there were still those who were considered superior and those who were considered inferior. At the instant the middle-aged man appeared, Su Ming took a step forward with an aloof expression as the others' laughter echoed in the air. When the middle-aged man saw him coming over, he moved back, then raised his right hand, formed a seal, and pointed towards Su Ming. "Manifestation of Dao." With those words, his whole body started withering in a bizarre fashion. He instantly looked as if he had turned into a skeleton, and a black light shot out from the tip of his finger. At the instant it did so, it broke down and turned into countless black threads in front of Su Ming and formed a huge net which attempted to envelop him. The black net instantly closed in, but just when it looked as if it was going to touch Su Ming, a hint of derision appeared on Su Ming's lips. He raised his right hand without hesitation, then seized the air in the direction of the light. With a bang, it came under his control. This scene caused the middle-aged man to suck in a sharp breath. He retreated swiftly, his heart filled with shock. He had always believed that his divine ability was incredibly powerful, so even those who had attained great completion in World Plane Realm would not dare seize it with bare hands. If they did so, the power contained within the divine ability would transform the person and steal their intelligence. The middle-aged man had ambushed plenty of people whose levels of cultivation had been higher than his with this art, but it was his first time seeing someone not being affected by the divine ability when they seized it with bare hands. As his expression changed, the middle-aged man moved, intending to retreat, but when Su Ming unfurled his right hand, the black net he'd caught immediately tumbled backwards towards the middle-aged man. At the instant his expression changed again and he was about to run from the lotus platform, a shrill scream of pain rang out. When his own net enveloped him, he was reduced to a nobody. Even his constellation robe was torn. After all, it was just a constellation robe and not a sacred constellation robe, which was why the defense it offered was limited. After he killed 3 people in succession, Su Ming also could not find any interest within himself to look at the lotus platforms belonging to the other dynasts. He simply stood on his own and waited for the 4th person. In an instant, they showed up. Time passed, and the 4th, 7th, 10th person came. When half a day passed, Su Ming had already killed nearly 400 people in the continuous stream of challenges. He did not pay any attention to the world outside. He did not know how the other dynasts were doing, but even he had gradually become averse to this sort of slaughter. However, he wanted to see just how many people would still dare to challenge him when he killed all of them in such a manner. Besides, he was still waiting for a person who could truly challenge him. Only that sort of fight would allow him to battle to his heart's content. He knew that as the battles continued and the others lost their courage to join the fights, those with great levels of cultivation would gradually appear. As a glint shone in Su Ming's eyes, another figure appeared on his platform. He only cast a glance at that person but could tell that he was just in the initial stage of World Plane Realm. This sort of cultivator made Su Ming frown. In just the span of a breath, The figure became clear, and it was just a lanky young man. The moment he appeared, he took a few steps backwards, and an obsequious smile appeared on his face before he wrapped his fist in his palm toward Su Ming. "Your Highness, don't attack. Please don't attack me. I'm not here to challenge you. With your glorious image and your fame in the 4 great true worlds, how would I dare attack you? Just one breath from you, and you'll send me straight back to my mother's womb. Thus, please fulfill my request and give me the span of a few breaths, just a few breaths." The obsequious look on the lanky young man's face looked very polished, without a hint of deceit to be detected. Su Ming was taken aback. The lanky young man was also wiping off cold sweat off his forehead in his head. He quickly took a few more steps back and reached the border. He pulled most of his body out of the screen of light around the lotus platform, then threw his head back to shout towards the sky in with such force that his face and neck turned red. "Old masters, young masters, fellow Taoists from the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd planes, seniors, fellow sect members, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunties, hello. I have here with me high-quality medicinal cores, a large number of spirit talismans, a wide assortment of blades, spears, swords, halberds, but if you want them, you'll have to be quick. The more you buy, the more free gifts you'll obtain. Remember me. I am De Shun. My De means morality, and Shun means having everything go your way when you buy things. I live on the 333rd continent in the 3rd plane. All my treasures are great items from when I went out on a war expedition. I can guarantee you that they are of high quality, and you can even book them." Once he finished shouting those words, all the people in the area were stunned. In fact, the battles from the other Lotus platforms came to a halt because of it as well. Even the old man in Life Realm looked over with anger, but at that moment, the young man ducked his body back behind the screen of light, wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming in an obsequious manner, and swiftly rushed out. Chapter 1070. Do you understand now? Hello, everyone, my name is De Shun. The excited voice seemed to echo in all corners of the world. De Shun had successfully attracted all the cultivators' attention and successfully promoted the things he wanted to sell. He could already predict that his future business would definitely increase by leaps and bounds due to his performance on this day. A person who could think of such a method was definitely not someone who was normal. They needed incredible courage and determination as well as readiness to face life-threatening danger. After all, if De Shun had made a wrong judgment, there was a high possibility that he would end up dead on the Lotus platform. That was why even Su Ming could not help but laugh after he recovered from his shock in regards to such a form of promotion which risked De Shun's own life. Besides, he had to have quite a powerful background besides being willing to risk his own life, or else causing such a ruckus in the solemn anointment ceremony would definitely end up with him punished for wreaking havoc in Morning Dao sect. If it was light, he would be sent into forced isolation, and if it was heavy, even his cultivation base might be destroyed. De Shun was clearly not an idiot either, or else he would not have thought about such a method to promote his business. He had to have people supporting him, which was why he did not have to be too worried about provoking the seniors in Morning Dao sect and bringing huge trouble on his head. While standing at the center of the Lotus platform, the old man in Life Realm stared with eyes burning in anger at De Shun swiftly running away and returning to his own stone platform. With a cold harumph, he forced down his anger. A mere degenerate. If there is anyone else who imitates his actions, do not blame me for punishing you according to the rules of the sect. With an imposing tone, the words of the old man in Life Realm immediately echoed in all directions. He wasn't punished. The 10 million cultivators in the area might have lowered their heads in an act of obedience, but they could not help but swiftly communicate with each other through their thoughts. You don't know about this, do you? This person called De Shun has a blood connection to sect Master Bei Bang, the one organizing this ceremony. There's such a thing? Then it means that this De Shun fellow is a direct descendant, but why would a direct descendant stay in a continent on the 3rd plane? Why else would sect Master Bei Bang call him a degenerate? I know a little about this matter since I was living in the same continent as De Shun in the past, so I've heard about him. He has incredible potential, but he doesn't like training. He only likes making medicinal cores and spirit talismans to sell. He sneaked to the 3rd plane and chose to stay there permanently, refusing to leave. There are plenty of other things that happened in that period of time, but I don't know the details. The various divine thoughts caused a buzzing in everyone's heads. Even though Bei Bang knew about it, he only frowned and did not pay too much attention to it. With a sullen expression, he glared at Deshun, who was in the distance and currently busy with talking to the others in an excited manner while occasionally pulling away his outer robe to reveal a large number of medicinal cores and spirit talismans hanging on his inner robe. He then sighed in his heart. The bald crane was in Su Ming's storage bag, but through its peculiar divine ability, it could see everything in the world outside. At that moment, it screeched excitedly in Su Ming's heart. Genius! This person's a genius. Su Ming, why haven't I thought of this before? Darn it all, I want to go out and be as cool as he is. Go tell the others that I'm buying crystals, a large amount of crystals. The bald crane had clearly been stimulated by Deshun's action, and as it made a loud racket, it looked as if it wanted to rush outwards. What are you going to use to buy crystals? Su Ming scented a divine thought uttered in a flat tone, immediately stunning the bald crane. It did not speak for a long time, clearly mulling over what it should use to buy crystals. As the bald crane was deep in thought, another figure appeared on Su Ming's platform, and the repetitious challenges began once more. 400, 500, 600. The slaughter continued on Su Ming's platform. The people who showed up were absolutely not his opponent, and even though he continued with his killing, a crease had slowly started to form between Su Ming's brows. He had thought that there was something off previously. Based on logical reasoning, with this sort of slaughter going on, it would be unlikely for the people outside to continue charging towards him like a swarm of bees to challenge him. Yet his situation didn't change no matter how much time passed. After a moment of thought, his lips curled up into a cold sneer. Since there were so many people coming to die, they should not blame Su Ming for being ruthless and merciless. Those outside could not see the slaughter on the lotus platforms, but as time passed, all the challengers who went to Su Ming's platform died, and this was enough to shock all those outside. As the end to the challenges of the first day came close to the end, most of the near 10 million cultivators in the world outside cast their gazes on Su Ming's lotus platform. Compared to the others, Su Ming's platform was drenched in blood and filled with a crimson light. In the clouds and fog which appeared above his platform were two runic symbols which were currently shining. One of them symbolized the number of challengers, and the other blood-red one showed the number of deaths that had occurred on that platform. The blood-red runic symbol revealed that the number of deaths had surpassed 1,000. The battles on other lotus platforms were clearly not as intense as on that of Su Ming. At most, they only had 400-something deaths. The ones who had the least were the aloof young man and the sickly pale middle-aged man with the gentle face. The two of them had sat on their platforms throughout the day, but no one had challenged them. Because of that, their platforms became incredibly distinct among the others, and only Su Ming's was as radiant as theirs. The first two attracted attention because no one dared to challenge them, and the other was because of the heinous slaughter. Besides that person called Deshun, all those who had dared to challenge Su Ming had died. Sometimes, a person's reputation was built through slaughter, such as with Su Ming. There was a grim look in the eyes of the cultivators in the area as they stared at his platform. Killing more than 1,000 cultivators could only be done with a certain amount of power, but even more importantly, Su Ming had not once activated the flourishing lotus on his robe to absorb life force so that he could recover his strength. Compared to the other dynasts who had been challenged throughout the day, besides the aloof young man and the gentle middle-aged man, all the others had restored their cultivation bases at least once. Some even several times. However, even so, the judgments could not be made easily, since all lotus platforms were shielded by a screen of light. No one could tell what was going on inside, so they did not know whether there had been powerful warriors among the challengers. Yet no matter what, the shock brought by the fact of someone being able to kill more than 1,000 cultivators in a day was like a mighty pressure that gradually enveloped the hearts of all those in the area. When the first day of challenges ended and the screens of light from the lotus platforms disappeared, the figures of all 10 dynasts were revealed. Su Ming's expression was dark. Over the course of the day, he had grown annoyed by all the slaughter. What he wanted was to fight against a true powerful warrior, not partake in such meaningless slaughter. Su Ming's questions had also grown. Through the battles over the course of the day, especially the hundreds of people in the latter half, Quite a large number of them had been taken aback when they saw him before they attacked. He would have passed it off as insignificant if it was just one person, but when hundreds of people did the same thing, Su Ming was forced to think more on it. It was clear that those cultivators had not come to challenge him, but for some unknown reason, they had been sent to his platform. The challenges for the first day are over, but us cultivators do not need long to rest. 2 hours later, the challenges will continue, Bei Bang said flatly after sweeping his gaze across Su Ming and the others. No one raised any opposition to his words. A glint shone in Su Ming's eyes, then for the first time during the anointment ceremony, right in front of 10 million cultivators, his calm voice rose into the air. I have a question. His voice echoed in the air. When it traveled in all directions, he immediately attracted the gazes from all the cultivators around him. Even the other 9 dynasts cast their gazes towards him. When they looked at him, most of the dynasts had calm expressions on their faces, so no one could tell what they felt at that moment. Speak, Bei Bang commanded flatly. A light shone in the eyes of the tanned old man who stood among the 3 sect masters behind him, and he started laughing coldly in his heart. There were clearly quite a large number of people who did not intend to challenge me today among my challengers, so why were they sent to my platform? Su Ming asked slowly while staring at the old man in Life Realm. When his words were heard by the crowd, the 10 million cultivators in the area were stunned before some of them soon seemed to have understood what was going on. They immediately chuckled, and when that noise fused together, it turned into loud laughter that echoed among the cultivators. It was rather grating to the ears, as if the whole world was laughing at Su Ming for his ignorance. In fact, even the tanned old man began laughing. Besides the aloof young man and the gentle middle-aged man among the other dynasts, the remaining 7 also laughed, and there was a hint of derision in their laughter. How many lands and stages have you cleared in the striking lands? Bei Bang frowned and looked towards Su Ming amid the laughter emitted by the 10 million people around him. Su Ming frowned as well. I remember this. Dao Kong, you only went to the first land and cleared the 6th stage in the striking lands, a young man with long hair and long, narrow eyes said with a laugh. He was one of the dynasts. You're wrong. It's not the 6th stage anymore. Dynast Dao Kong has not returned for 1,000-odd years, so his rank has automatically been reduced. I remember taking a glance at it 3 months ago. He has already been reduced to the 1st stage, a middle-aged man with a distinct birthmark on his neck said with a hint of a smile on his lips. He was clearly another dynast since he stood beside the young man with the long, narrow eyes. Great Sect Master Bei Bang, you do not need to trouble yourself to make explanations for this. I can provide answers for your question. Dao Kong, your rank in the striking lands is too low while all of us have already cleared the 1st striking lands a long time ago. In fact, Dao Lin and Dao Fa are powerful warriors who have cleared the 2nd striking lands. There are also far too many people among our fellow Taoists around us whose rank surpasses yours. That's why even if they challenge us, they are sent to your platform because their rank in the striking lands is not high enough. Another young man who was a dynast by the side said with a laugh. Bei Bang cast Su Ming a glance, then asked flatly in an unconcerned manner, do you understand now? As everyone spoke, the 10 million people's laughter grew louder and even more grating to the ears, causing the faces of direct descendants and the disciples from the other races who were good friends with Dao Kong to turn incredibly sour.